Good morning. We have a lovely practice today, and the emphasis is on your legs, strengthening your legs through the muscles at the front of your legs, which are your quadriceps. But before we get into that, let's take a moment of hopefully inspiration. I found a quote that I really liked that relates to peace in the world, which we very much need at this time, always. It isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it. And that comes from a long time ago from the lovely Eleanor Roosevelt. It isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it. So having said that, we're going to begin our practice, and you need a wall space, so I hope you have cleared a space for that, a chair, a block, a bolster, and maybe for comfort at the end, your yoga blanket or cushion. Let's go. So I'm starting with my yoga bolster, and I thought this was a really good thing to do for I don't know, softening, releasing the upper part of our backs. So it's basically reclining on the bolster. So I'm just sitting in the middle of it, and then I'm going to lower down, roll down, until I can feel I'm very close to the ground now. I'm resting my head on the ground, and the bolster fits in the upper part of my back where my shoulder blades are. So I've done that now, and it's time to kind of find the sweet spot for the bolster. So I would like my shoulders to be a little more supported. And that just takes sliding back on the bolster. So I've got my mid-back and my lower back and my buttocks onto the bolster, legs bent and just on either side of it. From there, what to do with your arms, you could just have them by your side on the floor like Shavasana, like the yoga relaxation. Or for some people, and I'm going to do this for myself, it feels nice to have my arms overhead. Now, I think there's more comfort in the pose because you are going to stay for a couple of minutes if it is comfortable enough. If shoulders are very near to the floor or resting onto the floor. So where do I feel? I feel like a front body stretch from the notch of my throat to my pubic bone. And in the beginning, I noticed that my upper back felt a little bit stiff lying over the bolster. So I'm just going to breathe into it and keep releasing my upper back to the support. The prop is soft, so I can let go of the weight of my upper back into that softness. And we're starting this way slowly and supported with the help of the prop, registering the feeling of opening from the back of your chest to the front of your chest, from the back of the heart to the front of the heart. Maybe one more minute here, and in this timing, you could address the breath and lengthen the breath a little. on the inhalation and the exhalation. On the exhalation, letting go of the breath like a sigh, an internal sigh of letting go. And a couple of deeper breaths. And we're about to move off the bolster, so instead of rolling off it to the side, I'm going to lift my hips, or you can take the bolster out that way, or just move down, lowering your buttocks to the floor in front of the bolster. And then let the upper back release, and might feel a little like you've still got that round shape of the bolster there. And then bend your knees in, roll to the side, and help yourself up to a seated position. And how we're going to sit is on the end of the bolster in a kneeling position. Now, let's talk about knees. So if your knees need a little bit more support than sitting with your hips elevated, you might take a block as well. And I've got a block and a bolster interfacing and sitting up quite high. It just depends on your knees. So for most people, this is enough support. It's a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to take the block out. And how I'm sitting is with my hands resting on the front of my thighs, my shoulders relaxed. From here, I'll interlock my fingers and press my hands away from me as I straighten my elbows. On an inhalation, bring your arms up, pretty much overhead, and then lengthen the arms until the elbows are straightening somewhat. Beautiful. And it feels like the stretch kind of lightens the weight of the torso onto the pelvis. And then bring your arms forward and down. Change the interlock. And keep the roots of your fingers locked in at the base. Then you're going to get a good knuckle stretch. And when you go up, again, might feel a little different in this way that you've joined your hands, and just little by little straightening your arms. We're going to repeat that because it's such a lovely stretch, I think. And then lowering your hands. Fold your arms so that you can do a wrap as though you're hugging yourself from the front of your body. And feel where your fingertips land is towards the outside of your shoulder blades. And now that you've registered that, the next time that you do your overhead arm stretch, see if you can lift up from the outer shoulder blades so that stretch is mobilizing that part of your back that you opened up. So hands interlocked again, straightening the arms, and then introducing the stretch to the outside of your shoulder blades, the outer ribs, and stretching up. And then finally, make sure that your lower rib cage at the front hasn't swung forward. See if you can bring the ribs, the diaphragm back a little bit without tension, so it feels like you've integrated the torso, upper torso and lower torso. And then let's go the other interlock. And up you go. And all those little details seem to make a difference for me. And stretching the ribs up, the shoulder blades up, and then keeping the diaphragm ribs contained a little bit. integrated. And then lower your arms and release. And this time when you bring your arms up, you can take them out to the side first. And that lets you take a big breath into the sides of your rib cage. Turn your palms up towards the ceiling. Now your arms are just parallel instead of all the way together, and stretch up. And now a little rotation. And you'll probably find that it's a very little rotation because it's not so easy to move when your arms are in this position. So turn your head to the right, look to the right, and then turn your upper part of your body, your shoulders. And at the point where you meet resistance in turning any further, then don't force it, but you might try to bring the left arm around a little bit more to the right. And even from the outside of your armpit. That's hard work. And then back to center, and go the other way, and rotating. For me, it's relatively easy to turn my head, to turn my neck, but don't force it if that's not so for you. And then that little extra bit where the right arm turns a little bit more, maybe from the armpit. And then back to center. Were you breathing? I was having difficulty breathing and talking. That happens. And then lower your arms and rest your hands back onto your thighs. We're going to do a series of movements. For the most part in this program today, I think we only have about 12 poses. So it's pretty simple, and we're going to go slowly. But for the next part, we'll work out about knees. So we're going to do the kneeling salutes. I'll come all the way back here. And as before, when you were seated in your kneeling position, you might want to have that height underneath you and that support. So it could be a bolster and a block, or just a bolster. Or if your knees are in relatively good shape, then we can start this just from kneeling and sitting between the heels. So that's all something for you to register. And then we're ready to begin. So from seated kneeling, we're kneeling up, and that's an inhalation when you raise your arms. Exhalation, sweep the arms forward, and then be gentle and see how far you want to go into your child's pose stretch. Your buttocks might be slightly elevated. Inhale, rock forward, and you're in that cow pose, cat pose. Exhale, slip in a little and short downward facing dog pose. Exhale. Inhale back to kneeling. Exhale, roll back to child. We're going to be up kneeling now. Inhale, anchor the lower legs. Arms up. Exhale back to seated. And you're either seated on a bolster or block or just bum. Let's go again. Inhale. And the breathing is all important here. Exhale, emptying the lungs. Inhale, roll forward. We're not holding, we're moving. Exhale, and with the breath. Inhale, all fours kneeling. Exhale, your version of child's pose at the moment. Inhale, reach for the ceiling. Exhale, reach for your thighs as you sit back. All right, and then let's just call the breathing. And best if you're going in your own time. We all have different lengths to our breath. And from up kneeling, seated once more. We've done 3 rounds, And I'm going to add another element here, and I'll call it so you can follow along with my directions. First part's the same. Inhale, kneeling up. Exhale, kneeling forward. As you roll forward this time, and you're on all fours kneeling, on an inhale, raise one arm up towards the ceiling. You're balanced on just 3 points now. Exhale. To the other side, other arm. Inhale. Exhale. Take another breath in. Lead with your front chest. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. All fours kneeling. Inhale. Exhale, kneeling back. Big breath in. And exhale, seated. Let's do that one with that variation again. Inhale, kneeling up. Exhale, like child's pose. Inhale, raise your arm up towards the ceiling. Replace it, exhaling. Other side. And exhale. Take another breath in, preparing for dog pose. Inhale. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, knees to the ground. Exhale, folding back. Up kneeling. Seated kneeling. Good. Take a moment, collect your breath. And I have one more variation I want to introduce here. And we'll do that. We'll integrate it as we go along. Starting again, inhale, kneeling up. Exhale, kneeling forward. Roll forward. Inhale, bring your right arm underneath your left arm as you flex that elbow a little bit and come on towards your right shoulder. Inhale, come back all fours kneeling, and then the other side, and your left arm underneath your right arm with your right elbow bent a little bit, lowering down. Inhale back to all fours kneeling. Exhale, downward facing dog pose. Inhale, coming down to knees. Exhale, buttocks back. Inhale, up, kneeling. Exhale, settling. Last round, and we'll do the sideways movement again. In breath and out and in. All right, and then right arm comes underneath the left arm. Just take a couple of extra breaths there as you lower down. Unforced, but stretching that upper part of your back again. And then come out in your own time. Place your hands, and then the other side. Left arm underneath your right arm to your left shoulder. Back up to all fours kneeling. Moving on, dog pose. Retracing all of our steps to kneeling, to child's pose, up kneeling, and resting buttocks to heels. Good. Take a few breaths there so that you feel calm and collected. And then let's come up to standing. There's some lovely things that we can do for our feet and our legs. And I'm going to use a chair. And I've just got it on one side of my mat. And These are so simple, but they get your toes working, all the joints of your toes and all the bones of your feet. So you may not need to hold on to the chair for balance. That's up to you. But we're going to do heel raises. So come up onto the balls of your feet and lift your heel as high as you can and then lower them. If you were like me, what you did was you rolled out a bit when you lifted your heels. So keep the big toe base anchored, don't lose that, and then come up onto your heels again and lower down. If you feel confident without the chair, then up and down. But do it slowly enough so that you feel, like I was saying, all those little tiny joints of your toes. Keep your shoulders relaxed and a pleasant expression on your face. Come all the way up and all the way down. Okay, so we've got that part of our anatomy working. Very good. And let's practice a couple of lunges. Once again, I'm going to use the chair for balance. You might not need it. I might not need it, but it's there. So lunges are a really good way to both stretch your front thigh muscles and your hamstrings at the same time. So take a step forward with your right foot. Bring your left foot back behind you. And like you did with the heel raise, come up onto the ball of the left foot. That left heel is up. And we're going to come into bent leg position. And have a look at your own pose. Your kneecap directly above the front of your ankle, so not forward. Also, if you're using your front thigh muscle in that forward leg position, the knee will stay stable right over the ankle instead of wobbling. So from here, feel very contained in the front leg, the right thigh into the hip. If it's easy for you to balance, bring your hands into the mudra, put your hands in front of your chest, lift your elbows a little bit, and then work to straighten your back leg, and you'll get the other quadricep movement, a nice stretch from the hip to the knee. Good, and then change. Step up, step back. So we're all about noticing, and then we take our lunge. And instead of the front knee being wobbly, we're going to pull the thigh bone back into the hip. Keep that back heel high. Keep the elbows high. Good. And then release from all that. And I thought we'd do an awareness exercise. So without the chair this time, go back to the wall. Go to your wall position. And, you know, that's probably one of the first props that was available to people, is having a wall as support. I've moved my feet about 35 centimeters. If you're taller, your feet about 40 centimeters away from the wall, and my buttocks and my upper back resting on the wall. Then bring your hands onto your front thigh muscles, and with your legs straightish, just a softness at the back of your knee, give your quadriceps, your front thigh muscles, a shake out. So grab hold of all of those muscles and shake them out. That feels kind of nice. And then keep your hands, flat of your hands onto your quadriceps, and do a knee bend, where little by little you're starting to feel the thigh muscles tighten on the bone, on the femur. So now from your knee to your hip, those muscles are really firm. And if they're strong, then they're going to hold you here for a while. If they're a little weak, we couldn't stay here very long. But we'll just stay here a moderate amount of time. Relax your shoulders. And then push up and straighten the legs again. Feel that softening behind the knees and give the quads a shake out again. Good job. And then one more time. And coming into the wall squat version of chair pose. And I'm going to come down a little bit lower this time. So I'm approximating a right angle behind my knees. And if these muscles are holding firm for me, and I've done this practice a couple of times this week already, so they're getting a good workout, then bring your arms straight up towards the ceiling, turn your palms in, and integrate that arm stretch with the muscles of your upper part of your back, your shoulder blades, and stretch up from the little finger side of your hand. All right, and then hands back onto your thighs, push up, good, and away from the wall. And take a few steps, give your feet and your legs a little shake out. And because we've done that as a nice warm-up, let's do chair pose, Utkatasana. So standing on your mat, we're in Tadasana with the feet a little bit apart. And let's just take that as the first pose. So not to give it short shrift, without even looking, because you know where your toes are, your feet are. Feel your toes elongate, and awareness of the big toe and its base, the little toe, and the area a little in front of the heels. That begins to get my legs more awake, alert. And now we're ready to move with a inhalation. We're going to take the arms up, forward and up, and bend the legs and your imaginary chair position. Very good. And then I'd like to add the use of the block here. Exhale, lower your arms down and pick up your yoga block and place it just above the inside knees and hug onto it with your inner thigh muscles. From there, when you take your arms up and bend your legs, a light squeeze against that block. And that's going to help you keep the weight on the base of the big toe as well. So you avoid rolling the ankles out and pressing down there and pressing lightly against the block. And then finally, or it would have been good from the beginning, lift your tailbone a little bit. Good. And exhale down. Good. And I think that is 2 times. Let's make it 3. Inhale your arms up. Sit your buttock bones back a little bit, then lift your tail. Can you lengthen the arms a little bit? Take some of the weight off of your shoulders. Good work. And then lowering your arms, kick the block out and up to standing. I think all that work has prepared us for some standing poses. So leave your block to the side and come onto your mat. Simply Trikonasana, triangle pose to start with. From Tadasana, relax your shoulders and settle into your breathing. And then step out. Your favored distance for Trikonasana, and turn your feet to the right. Good. And then from there, as you raise your arms, we haven't done any lateral movements as yet, but we've got some good training that we've done so far for the legs and the feet. So feel your footing from your base, big toe, little toe, heel. Draw the front thigh muscles up, and you might have sensed and felt that already several times, from the top of the knees to the hips. And then from that stable base, extend out to the right. Merely drop the right hand beneath your right shoulder. Bring the left arm up towards the ceiling. Pause. The right thigh is externally rotating, the left thigh internally rotating. And then lift your tailbone. Good. If your heads come forward a little bit, it's a heavy weight for the frontal body. Bring the back of your skull back a little bit. Inhale and come up. Turn your feet forward and to the left. Good. Pause right there. Your footing, your front thigh muscles. Let's go left. Reach out. And then almost reluctantly lowering your arm down, and it rests beneath the left shoulder, the right arm above the right shoulder. Good. And then the tailbone lifts, front thigh turns out, back leg turns in, shoulders back. Maybe bring your head back a little bit without lifting your chin. And inhale and come up. And feet forward. And stepping back to Tadasana. To your home base. A check-in on your breathing. And let's repeat that pose. Although we can't ever repeat a pose. It's never exactly the same. Step out wide. Turn your feet to the right. Set yourself up well. Start from your base, your both feet firm and arms out. Feel the arms can open up the front of your chest if you stretch little finger side of the hand, shoulder blades come into it. And then lift your kneecaps just above your kneecaps and extend out and down. So the pose is apparently without movement. We're holding it as a static pose. Lift your tailbone. But there's movement. So you can feel the leg muscles have to keep adjusting. The diaphragm is moving with the breath. And your mind might be moving within the pose. And let's come up, inhaling. And for the second side here, which is, I guess, the fourth side now, to the left. Reaching out, you might find the lateral movement a little more accessible. And left hand down, right arm up. When I make that adjustment and lift my tailbone, I've surprised myself that I can take my lower hand down a little bit further on my leg. It's not what I'm aiming for necessarily, but that just adjustment helps so much. Shoulders back. Feel your footing to help you come up. Inhale up. And feet to the front. And then happily stepping all the way in. Good. You might shift your weight foot to foot, a little bit like you're walking in place. Relax your foot pads, relax your shoulders. And we're ready to move on to just test these front thigh muscles a little bit more, and that is in Warrior Two pose. So let's take a big step out. Keep your hands onto your hips and turn your feet to the right. Make those early adjustments so that the sacrum is in a good position. Turn the top of the right thigh out. Turn the top of the left thigh in. Raise the arms to shoulder height. Stretch out through your shoulder blades to the tip of your little finger. Bend your right leg. Maybe let's bend and straighten that a few times just to feel, that's what that front thigh muscle is doing. It's holding firm like it did in the lunges, the front leg. And then let's keep the right leg in the bent position. Feel the right knee coming back a little bit, the right thigh into its hip. And then looking to the right side, over your right shoulder. Stretch back through the left arm. Now that left leg is relatively straight without locking the knee. Drop your shoulders, lift your chest. Good, looking straight forward, straighten that leg, turn your feet to the left. If you're comfortable with keeping your arms up, it's probably a good strengthening movement for your arms. Bend your left leg. Good. Instead of letting the knee shoot forward over your ankle and toes, draw the knee back. We're talking left knee. On the right leg, the leg behind you, make sure that you're not overlocking the right knee. Turn your head. Once you turn your head, bring the back of your skull back a little bit. Feel your back body. Extending the right arm away from the left arm. Good. And then head faces forward. Straighten that left leg. Turn your feet to center. And step all the way back in as you lower your arms. Good. And like you did when you shook out your legs, shake your arms out a little bit, your elbows, your wrists. And we have two more standing poses slated. The next one is Warrior One pose. We've done some really good work for going into that pose so far. Step out again. And for balance, if you need to, narrow your position and bring your hands onto your hips. We're going to turn to the right side. Right foot turns out, left foot turns in a little bit, and then turn your whole body to the right side so you're facing towards your right leg. Now, a little tidying up here will be very useful. Step your left foot out a little further to the left side so you've got more space between the upper part of your thighs. Good. And then having done that, you've got more space for your pelvis as well and the pelvic floor. And then start to bend into your right leg. And if you were at the wall doing your wall chair pose, what you did was you drew the right knee back, drew the right thigh back, and that's what tones that front thigh muscle. Then let's work on balance and see how we go to lift the back heel. So do a heel raise and spin on the ball of the foot and turn that foot more forward. Good. We're going to do this as repetition. So let's do the other side first, and then we'll come back to this side. And coming up. And I'm going to turn 180 degrees around to the other side, or you could just step the left foot forward. It's up to you. Bending the left leg, coming into the lunge on the left side. You've still got that space between the upper thighs, and lift the right heel. Good. I've turned on my right foot, so my right foot is facing pretty much the same way as my left foot. Good. Left thigh stays toned. Right thigh is getting a good stretch. Good. Let's go back to the first side. Take a moment to adjust. Keep your balance along the way. Bend your right leg. And let's add an arm movement here. But first, right thigh back into the hip socket, nice and firm. See if you can switch on your left buttock, your left glutes, and make that hamstring a little bit more firm. Back leg hamstring. And then bring your hands into prayer position in front of your chest. And even raising the arms if your balance is steady. Beautiful. Lowering the arms, maybe hands to your hips. Turn the other way. Balancing on your right foot, ball of your foot. Bend your left leg. As you sink that left buttock down, draw the left thigh bone back. Feel tone in the front thigh. Feel stretch in the back thigh. Switch on your right glute. If you're steady in your balance, you can raise your arms up. Maybe tilt your chin up. And exhale, arms come down, hands to your hips. Release, straightening the front leg. Turn front and center. And step in. Now, you've had the foreshadowing of the standing poses, and we've got one more to go. And everything leads to Ardha Chandrasana, the half moon pose. So I've got a wall to steady my balance and a block to help me improve the lift of the pose. So come back to your space at the wall and step out like you did for Trikonasana, about that distance, and place the block in front of your right foot, just at a reach of your right arm. So there's about, what distance? 15 centimeters out from your right foot. And then still in your upright position, we do Trikonasana as the lead-in to this. So raise your arms to chest height. I'm near enough to the wall so I could just maybe lean back for support, my right shoulder blade, even my right buttock. And it really steadies my balance. But Trikonasana, you've got 2 feet on the ground, so no problem there. Extend to the right, bring your right hand down, your left arm up. Beautiful. Left hand, left hip. Look down at the block that you've placed in front of your right foot. Slide the left foot in a little bit so you've got 2 feet on the ground still. Reach your right hand onto the top of the upright block. And then, little by little, lift your left leg. At this point, my right shoulder blade, it is resting on the wall. I'm going to see if I can tuck it in and come slightly away from the wall. You might not be ready to do that. You might be ready to do that. You might be freestanding. So those are the variations of the pose. And then to release from the pose, we're coming back through Trikonasana. So we're doing a little planning here. Bending the right leg, right hand, right shin, both legs straight, your feet are on the ground. Bring the left arm up, and there's your pose. And inhale and come up, and shift your feet to the left side, We're planning on the half moon pose on the left side now, but first Trikonasana. Inhale, bring your arms out wide. Stretch from shoulder to shoulder. And be in the pose calmly. Collect yourself in Trikonasana. Right hand, right hip. Look down at your left foot. Take a step in with your right foot. And you shorten the distance. And now you're able to reach to the top of that block. Left hand onto the block. Right arm, right leg slowly coming up. If you feel steady in your balance, then right arm up. Now, can you turn on your left quadricep a little bit more? So you're lifting above the knees, just above the knees, all the way to the hip. Then, right hand, right hip. You're going to look for the floor with your right foot and take it back a little bit. Trikonasana. You're in charge here. Don't come out of the pose just yet. And inhale, come up. And turn your feet back to the right. So we'll call that a dress rehearsal. If you feel really strong in your pose, move away from the wall and see how you go to free balance. And even if you do feel pretty steady in the pose, just work those muscles that we've been talking about a little bit more, even at the wall. So Trikonasana, right side. Replace your block. Be in the pose. Tidy it up a little bit. Lift your tailbone. Broaden the arms away from each other. And then left hand, left hip. Reach out. Right hand onto the block. If you're taller, if you have long arms, you might have the block on the mid-range. Mine's on the high range because I'm not very tall. And then switch on the right thigh muscle, just above the knees. And I'm not going to count on the wall so much this time. Right shoulder blade comes in, right buttock comes in. And then steady retreat from the pose, staying calm. And left hand onto your hip, bend your right leg. Look for the floor. Trikonasana. Inhale, come up. And moving to the left side and the last side. You might find your two sides are radically different than each other. So if you notice an asymmetric symmetry like that, pay more attention to the weaker side. And then here we go, triangle pose. Pretty as you can make it. Right hand, right hip. And then moving on. They're like choreographed steps. First you have 2 feet on the floor, and the right foot comes in, and then you raise that right leg. No higher than your hip. And if it's lower than the hip, just work towards straightening it. Left thigh up. If you're ready, right arm up. Left shoulder blade in. Left glute squeezes in. And quietly, calmly, coming back to Trikonasana. 2 feet on the ground. Take that right foot back a little bit. Draw the buttocks in. Lift the tailbone. Inhale and come up. Turn your feet in. And step all the way back to Tadasana. Giving Tadasana, mountain pose, its due. A little time to feel your feet again, your footprints. Relaxed behind your knees, soften your buttocks a little bit, drop your shoulders. lift your gaze a little bit so that the sternum lifts too. Very good. And then we're going to take up our chair once more. And let's say we're about to do several seated twists on the chair. So I'm going to sit side saddle with my right side facing the back of the chair. And then once I've done that, it's time to settle in again. And the rotation for your spine comes initially just from placing your hands on the top of the chair. And that small rotation can happen without any tugging or pulling or pushing or anything like that. So lift your elbows a little bit. So the elbows lift up, and then you've got the area of your armpit chest open and the sides of your lungs. So little by little, and now with the breath emphasis turning from left to right. So full breath in, and then rotating gently on the exhalation. And even if you weren't to turn any further, you've reached your limit, and that's fine. With the breath, feel the exhalation allowing the navel, the abdominal organs, the organs of elimination, just that gentle squeeze on your exhalations. Right? And then turning back towards your legs, and your hands onto your legs. Come off the chair, turn the other way. And initiating the turn gently with your hands on the top of the chair. And the elbows lifted. And the breath being the motivator of the movement. Full inhalation, deep exhalation. Right, and then let's go back to the original side where your right side is facing the chair. The back of the chair, I should say. And let's add an arm movement here and see what the influence of using your arm in this way has on your rotation. So bring both hands to the top of the chair, turning to the right. Your feet are very firmly onto the floor, but as you turn, the left knee comes forward of the right knee, and that's going to help you avoid torquing the lower spine. Keep the elbows up, turning. And then free your right arm, you're turning to the right from the left, and bring your right arm out to the side. Like a big gesture of, welcoming. And opening your arm straight out to the side. Keep that left elbow up, and the shoulders as much as you can level. Can you catch sight of your right hand or your right thumb? Maybe? Good. And then bring that arm in. And let's go swap it over. So you're sitting with your left side to the back of the chair. Bring your feet in a little bit. As much as you've got your feet grounded, then make sure that your buttocks are grounded on the chair. And round we go. Starting with a little turn. And as you're ready, bringing the left arm out, a big sweeping round gesture to the left side. And looking to the left without stressing your neck. Beautiful. Bring that arm in. And then let's seat ourselves back to the way that we started, right side facing the back of the chair. And then rest your hands onto your thighs and drop your shoulders. You're just relaxed through your torso. Okay, now we're going to work with the breath very pointedly, and we'll bring the hands onto the top of the chair and turn to the right. Rest your hands onto the back of the chair. When you breathe in fully, breathe out fully, and then do your turning on the space between the exhalation and the inhalation. It might seem counterintuitive, but you should be able to make your turning very calm and gentle and still effective. So there's your inhalation, you're tall on your inhalation, exhalation, a little rotation, and then the main turning in the space between the exhalation and the inhalation. One more breath like that. In, out. A little gap opens up before the next inhalation, and you turn. And then finishing, turning back towards your legs. Rest your hands onto your thighs again. Drop your shoulders. And other side. So your hands onto the top of the chair initiates a slight turn, but now we're going to work with the breath. Inhaling, exhaling, and in that space between the exhalation and the inhalation, your rotation. In it, breath is full, out breath is full, and then allowing the turn in that space. One more round. A little parentheses between the exhalation and the next inhalation and turning. And then turn back towards your legs. Rest your hands onto your thighs. Close your eyes for a moment. It's always good to do a check-in as you go along and feel what is the influence of the movements that I've been doing. All right, and then come out of the chair. And we're not quite finished with it, so we won't put it away entirely, just off to the side. And have a clear space on your mat, free of any props, and come back to kneeling. And from your kneeling position, bring your forearms down interlock your hands. And we're resting weight onto the knees and the elbows and wrists on your forearms. It looks like it might be a setup for headstand, but we're not. We're just going to do a strengthening movement and a little bit of an inversion here. So keep the palms right all the way together so your wrists are closing. And then from here, tuck your toes under. Carry the weight through your forearms and lift your knees up, lift your hips up, much as you do in dog pose. And make sure that you keep in contact with your breath, inhaling, exhaling. So my head is off the floor a little bit, and I'm stretching up through my hips and down through my elbows. We're going to do this on repetition, so come back down to ground. Good. And relax for a moment. My hands are still linked. I'll release them and fold them the other way. Fold the hands, the opposite interlock. Then step your elbows in a little bit. Bring your chest forward. See if you can carry weight down through the wrists. So your wrists are vertical and you're putting weight there. And then tuck your toes under. Use your core muscles to help lift off. Drop your head down. Lift your buttock bones up. Lift your tail up. If this comes relatively easy for you, then you might take a little step in. Bring your feet in a little bit closer to your elbows. Lift your buttocks a little higher towards the ceiling and use it by pushing through the ball of your foot. And exhale, come down. And probably it's very pleasant thing to come into child's pose. And let all of any effort that you put into the pose go out of your body. Just let go. All right, and then will you come up slowly, and we're going to set ourselves up for a different kind of relaxation because it also incorporates an inversion. So here's my chair, back on my mat. And here's the bolster, or you might have a cushion that you used at the beginning of the session. And if you watch my setup now, my demonstration, I'm going to use the bolster in the same manner that I did at the beginning of this session to support my upper part of my back, and my legs are going to go onto the chair. So have a look as I go into this, because there's a few points that will help you make a pleasant transition into this inversion. So I've come to sit on the bolster, and part of it is underneath the chair, and my legs up onto the seat of the chair. In the beginning of the class, you supported yourself in rolling down, rolling your spine down, and then we finished up with the shoulders just almost onto the floor, or resting on the floor. But this time the legs are elevated. The thing to note is that when you do this, that your back feels like it's supported. And if it's a bit uncomfortable for you with the bolster higher up onto the back, you might move back from the chair a little bit and bring more of your upper back to rest onto the floor. And and ultimately have more support for your lumbar spine. But the main thing is that you are in a inverted position, and that has its own benefits that it brings to your whole body and to your relaxation. So we got here, and the legs are supported, and then do a check-in. Is this really your favored position? Have you arrived at a pose that you can stay in for the next 5 minutes or so? So I feel I demonstrated sliding off the bolster. I'm going to come back on top of it a little bit more. And your legs, when they're on the chair, they tend to drop out. Make sure they're not dropping off the chair, so keep them towards the middle. And then let your knees turn out. Let your inner legs relax, your groins relax. If you keep your arms by your side, they're in a position like child's shavasana. Another option is to have your arms loose overhead, or even one hand resting in the other hand, like we do sometimes in Legs Up the Wall. So at this point, if you notice that your back feels still, uncomfortable, it's probably a better idea for you to lie your back flat on the floor in front of the chair and without any extra support of a bolster or cushion. Because now there's an opportunity for you in this quiet space. I'll be quiet in a moment, so less talking and more chance to observe what's going on. But I might point you in one direction, which is that your breath pattern or your breath rhythm can change somewhat just by dint of being upside down. So you probably would have needed to take a baseline to notice your breath otherwise, but do tune in to your breath as you're lying here for the next few minutes. And on successive exhalations, maybe you could emphasize the exhalation a little bit more, so that on each of them you become a little bit more relaxed through your diaphragm, where the ribs might be lifted a little bit, a general softening down into the soft prop or towards the floor. On every exhalation, more release to gravity.
If you've had your arms overhead, then perhaps bring your hands onto your diaphragm. If your arms in Shavasana, bring your hands onto your diaphragm. Once more, observe your breath there. And now you're going to come off the cushion, the bolster, and just move your buttocks to the floor in front of it rather than rolling to the right or the left. And first your feet come down, and then moving slowly down off the bolster until your torso lies flat. You were in a little back bend for your upper part of your back. So now you might still feel the shape of the bolster there. Just let go. And then let's move along to be seated to complete the session. Either seated cross-legged or seated kneeling. This time I'm sitting on my heels. And take time to settle in. And first, rest your hands into your lap, so your palms one inside the other. Sometimes we use our hands to create gestures, meaningful gestures. So feel the position of your hands, that kind of gesture of receptivity. You've received the gifts of the practice, so feeling gratitude for the practice of yoga. And then bring your hands together in front of your breastbone. And maybe touch the thumb to the breastbone and lift a little bit there. And feel the opening through your heart center. And in this gesture, I think of it as a gathering gesture for all that you've received from the practice, and an opportunity to acknowledge ourselves from bringing ourselves to the mat again. And then sending our gratitude, our appreciation out into the world. We say, Namaste. Thank you.